Return to Monkey Island was and is a wonderful surprise. This is a series that began back in 1990, co-created by Tim Schafer, Ron Gilbert, and David Grossman. They went on to create a sequel together in Monkey Island 2, LeChuck's Revenge, and at that point, other people and eventually other studios took over the license to deliver 3 more games. This game, Return to Monkey Island, is being made by Ron Gilbert's studio, Terrible Toy Box, and it has David Grossman assisting. Tim Schafer is off doing his own thing at Double Fine, so this is the closest we're ever going to get to having the original band back together, and this title is sort of positioning itself as a kind of Monkey Island 3, since it follows on from the events of Monkey Island 2, LeChuck's Revenge. No one saw any of this coming, since we haven't had a new Monkey Island game since 2009, where Telltale did their episodic take on Guybrush and his buddies. This was, for all intents and purposes, a dead franchise, suddenly resurrected in April of this year, when Devolver announced it had stitched up a deal with LucasArts, now Disney, to get the game out the door, exclusive to PC and Switch for now, but surely Xbox and PlayStation will happen at a later date. Return to Monkey Island is exactly what you expect a Monkey Island game to be. It's taut, clever, funny writing, it's memorable characters, it's a bunch of great puzzles, plus a handful of really annoying ones. It's a really nice, classically inspired pirate adventure. It feels wholly nostalgic in its telling, without ever feeling like it's relying on member berries to carry it. There's lots of returning characters and locations, but also plenty of new ones. It's not trying to set up a new arc for Guybrush's story, it's trying to gracefully conclude it, which isn't a spoiler by the way. That was the stated intention of the title from the moment it was announced. Critically, Return to Monkey Island makes some small but important interventions into the format that make it better paced and more accessible than ever before. A trivia minigame, a hint book for when you get stuck, lots of shortcuts to reduce the pain of backtracking. This game has been thoroughly played and tested, and all of its creases have been ironed flat. Return to Monkey Island has arrived at a gameplay formula that feels at all times pleasant, letting you just roll through the story so you can get to the next chuckle or meet the next quirky character. It feels a little quaint in the modern era, where what Monkey Island does now is so much more prevalent across the gaming landscape than it was 32 years ago. But that's okay, because the secret of the Monkey Island series is its irresistible charm, and it's a charm that more than holds up all these years later. Return to Monkey Island starts with a charming time jump that I won't spoil. Suffice it to say, a lot has changed since Guybrush's days as a hapless pirate wannabe, but the scent of adventure fills his nostrils, and as always, he's powerless to resist it, and so he sets his mind to mounting one last expedition to uncover the secret of Monkey Island. His first stop, the island of Melee, where he should be able to quickly secure financing from the pirate lords and a ship from that wily Stan S. Stanman. Problem? The pirate lords aren't the ones he was dealing with back in the day, replaced by a new trio who haven't heard of Guybrush's exploits and aren't willing to back him, and Stan has found himself in some legal trouble owing to involvement in what may or may not have been a pyramid scheme. With nothing but his fading good looks and his knack for solving obtuse puzzles to rely on, Guybrush begins his awkward first steps back to the island that is his obsession. While the island of Melee looks familiar, it's changed in one crucial aspect: the art design, and that's a change that extends to every location and every character in the game. This has unfortunately turned into a rather disappointing pall over the release of the game. Creator Ron Gilbert maintains a blog that's always open to public comments, but when the new art style was revealed as part of the gameplay trailer, Ron's blog was inundated with comments critical of the new art style, some of which crossed the line into personal attacks, standard internet stuff, sadly. This led Ron to close comments on his blog and say that he no longer wished to show the game prior to release. He said, "The joy of sharing has been driven from me," which is a real bummer given that his work has given people so much joy over the years. Just as in the pre-release window, I'm sure that much of the conversation about this game will center on this new art style and how good it is versus the previous art styles, the likes of which were sort of typified by the Curse of Monkey Island or the remasters of 1 and 2. Monkey Island 4 and 5 started doing the whole 3D thing, and I don't really think it worked, particularly in the case of 5, which looks like a Wallace and Gromit episode.
Finish enchanting that sword before LeChuck completes his spell.
I'm on it. One LeChuck defeating cursed cutlass of Cthulhu coming up.
So I'm going to say I like this art style. I do. I think it has its own distinctiveness in how it allows characters to be designed, and it has a lot of impact on environments since they can now break the traditional rules of geometry, resulting in these sort of undulating spaces. The voodoo shop in town is the best example of that, I think, where viewing it is almost like viewing it through one of those bendy mirrors. More than anything else, I think this art design creates an unmistakable line break between this game and the one that preceded it 31 years ago. God, it hurts to say that out loud, but yeah, this is a guess, but I'm guessing Ron and David wanted to make a statement that time had passed since then, both in-game and in the real world, and this new, dare I say, more modern art style does make that point. But I will say that I don't like this art style as much as I did the classic games. I don't think that's nostalgia speaking either, because in this review process, I've gone back and watched old clips of the old games, particularly Curse of Monkey Island, and it's just so pretty and so timeless. The amount of detail in every frame is extraordinary, and I think if you released a game like this today, it would do super well. There's just something to it that's, yeah, it's fantastic. There was a Twitter thread I remember seeing some time ago called The Danger of Minimalist Design. It was a really interesting thread about how the detail and intricacy is being removed from certain things, and when taken in aggregate, this shift is disappointing because so much identity and character rests in those details. I think something similar could be said of Return to Monkey Island. While I still like this style, I don't think it has anywhere near the same timeless quality that the originals will, mainly due to the fact that so much detail has been stripped from it. The characters look less real and more like puppets, and the environment seems so much less lived in and memorable than their earlier iterations.
Hi, I'm Guybrush Threepwood. Remember me?
Haven't seen you in a while, Threepwood. What have you been up to?
Well, you know, freebooting mostly, swashbuckles and so on.
While Return to Monkey Island's art design is a big departure for the series, the rest of the package feels largely familiar in all the right ways. So many characters from the previous games make their return here, but crucially, you aren't inundated with remember when stories or in-jokes that fly over your head. There's a quick nod of recognition that happens whenever you encounter one of those familiar faces, and then conversation quickly moves on to the matter at hand, meaning that at no point do you feel as though the game is awkwardly leveraging nostalgia for nostalgia's sake. Ron had a new story to tell here, it just so happened to feature a number of reprised characters. The writing is such a joy. It's always clever without ever sniffing its own farts, it's always thrifty, never using two words where one will suffice. It's always imaginative without ever feeling unwieldy. Its contrivances feel so earned and authentic, so you don't roll your eyes when you learn that part of your quest involves becoming the queen of the frozen island of Bermuda. You're just like, oh yeah, okay, that makes sense. And then you get on with it, confident in the knowledge that this little chapter of your broader quest will put you in touch with fun new characters and drop you into equally fun scenarios. Don't go in expecting a story that will have you rolling on the floor in hysterics, or one that will move you deeply, or one that will incite in you some sort of meta-narrative analysis of pirate tropes. It's just a nice little story about Guybrush, his buddies, and the bad guys standing in their way. If you go in expecting that, you get exactly that, and you'll be glad that you did. Puzzles, right. Well, this is what the series was always known for, as Monkey Island was certainly one of the defining point-and-click adventure games. It wasn't the first point-and-click adventure game, but it was one of the key titles to get this entire genre its start. Back then, we were kids, and we'd get really stuck on a puzzle, and had to call one of those game hotlines where they'd charge you like $3 a minute for gaming tips. That was a true thing we did. Or we'd buy GamePro magazine so we could read part 4 of their walkthrough, forced to wait another month if we happened to get stuck again soon after that. We're older now, and a little bit smarter, maybe, so I found this to be a pretty breezy playthrough for the most part. I played on the harder difficulty because, yes, there are 2 difficulties now. The first is the casual mode, which has fewer puzzles and easier puzzles, whereas I went hard mode because I didn't want to miss anything. I was a little scared about making that choice because Monkey Island was a little famous for how counterintuitive some of its puzzle solutions were, and there is some of that here, but not much. By and large, almost all of the puzzles had a fairly obvious and intuitive solution that I was able to arrive at independently, and that was nice because it meant that I could roll through this in around 8 hours without ever feeling frustrated. But I did get stuck on more than a few occasions, and in those instances, I turned to the trusty in-game hint book. You're gonna love this. Open your inventory and you'll find a book that tracks your current tasks and is updated dynamically based on your progress. So if you're trying to get something done and you've already completed 3 or 4 steps, opening the book will give you a targeted hint for how to complete step 5. Best of all, it's a hint. It isn't the solution, at least not at first. The first time you ask it for a hint, the book will give you a general nudge, maybe a general question that might give you some idea of where you should be directing your attention. Click on it again and it will give you more specifics about where to go and what to do, but still leave it fairly open. Click on it a few more times and it will outright tell you the solution. It was very rare that I would reach that final step, but I definitely relied on steps 1 and 2 a bunch of times because I don't play these games to get stumped. I play them to relax and have a laugh, and this feature let me do that while also preserving some of my dignity, which is nice. This isn't the only modern finishing here though. The whole thing feels so pleasant to play owing to some small but important touches. For example, movement. Click once and Guybrush moves slowly, click twice and he moves fast. It's a small thing, but without it, the game would be much more a chore to play owing to how much backtracking goes on here. The same thing goes for shortcuts. At various points, new shortcuts open up after the first time you navigate to a new area. For example, you'll immediately be teleported to the end of a cave when you visit it for the second time, rather than having to navigate the catacombs before it multiple times. Again, this just makes the whole thing feel frictionless, something you'll really appreciate later in the game when you get access to the entire Caribbean and spend a huge amount of time going back and forth between locations as you chip away at these later game puzzles. The quest log is also great, really clearly maintaining a list of goals and subtasks so you never feel directionless. Oh, and there's this trivia book as well. You'll find trivia cards hidden throughout in different locations, and correctly answering them allows you to stick them in your book. You don't get anything other than the satisfaction of having answered them correctly, but they're nice. The point-and-click adventure game has come a long way since Monkey Island gave it a kickstart all those years back, and Return to Monkey Island certainly isn't looking to be some revolutionary upending of that genre. It's just trying to be more of it, but it's definitely responding to the advancements made in the preceding years, and what exists here is a slick, streamlined experience that's as hard or as easy, as well-paced or as roadblocked as you'd like it to be. On that point of the genre's come a long way, it has, and Return to Monkey Island really made me think about that. Do you get Return to Obra Dinn without Monkey Island? Do you get Disco Elysium? Do you get the Telltale games we got for that stretch of years? Do you get walking simulators like Firewatch and The Vanishing of Ethan Carter? I mean, you obviously do, because Monkey Island wasn't the first point-and-click game, but it certainly counts among the most influential, and no doubt forever altered the trajectory of the point-and-click genre. But it wasn't just the point-and-click puzzle thing. These were brilliantly written and funny at a time when brilliantly written and funny games were really rare. They were intended for children, but these games respected the intelligence of the children playing them, and that felt nice back then, let me tell you. The intended audience for these games really made me reflect on the intended audience for this game, and I gotta say that I don't think this is intended for us at this point. I mean, it is in the sense that it's got an all ages appeal and a marketing pitch that very much appeals to an established audience, but I think this game is still meant for kids. It's full of characters and storylines that would be best enjoyed by someone aged 12 or under, and that's okay. We can still enjoy it too, just the same way we can enjoy Toy Story. But I think it's going to be best enjoyed with a kid by your side, letting them experience the pirate's life that we got to experience in our youth. They won't get all the jokes, but that's okay. Those ones are for us. They'll get stuck on a bunch of puzzles, but that's okay, because unlike back when we were playing it, they'll have someone sitting next to them to help them. It's a sentimental series that meets a sentimental end here, but I think the nicest sentiment is the idea that Return to Monkey Island is a very good excuse to pass the love of this franchise onto another generation of fans. In that regard, and in almost every other, Return to Monkey Island is a success, and so I recommend it to you and yours.